Attended in-person executive committee meeting, and if you would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Public notification of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. The first item we want to do is approve the agenda or modify it. So I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Hold on a second. Let me just identify who's here. I forgot to do that. Let's see. Remotely we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3 here, 7. We have a quorum. Okay, we're good. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Without objection, we will approve the agenda as written. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as written. Next, we will ask for I'll ask for a motion on the approval of the minutes for the June 7th, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll approve it.
Thank you. Who said that? Whoever said that?
Sure.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you. We have a second. Without objection, I will approve the minutes for the June 7th, 2021 meeting. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the minutes of the June 7th, 2021 meeting are approved. Next, we have citizens' comments. Before I read the requirements, are there any? There's no one in the building who, I don't believe, who wants to make a citizen's comment. How about online? Is there anyone online who wants to make a citizen's comment?
No, sir, there isn't.
I heard a voice.
No, Sarah.
No, Sarah, there is not.
But I don't know to whom the voice belongs.
It was Sarah, there isn't, there are.
Oh, there are none, okay. No citizens' comments. All right, the first item on the agenda, item number 7, is a discussion of the ad hoc committee recommendations regarding the coronavirus protocols for the county office building. And I expect there'll be some presentation on that by a member of staff.
I think it's going to be the chairman, isn't it?
Thank you. Mr. Greenway?
Chairman Passman, are you doing this, or do you want me to do it? I'm happy to do either way.
You can start off, and I can add anything that is necessary.
Okay. You all received an email late yesterday afternoon that reported to you all the findings and recommendation of the ad hoc committee that was formed for COVID response. That committee was made up of council members McClellan as the chairman, council member Howard, council member Glover, and council member Lawson. And there were 3 staff members that were there as advisors that served on the committee to advise, and that was our Human Resources Director, Mr. Scott Marshall, our Deputy County Attorney, Tom Keaveney, and our Detention Center Director, Quandera Grant. They've met a few times and provided a list of recommendations. I went through those list of recommendations and discussed it with the assistant county administrators and the executive team. Many of the recommendations on here I do support. There are a few things that, and many of the things we're already doing or have readily available to implement fairly quickly. There are a couple of things I do not support, and that is going back to some time ago, as you all recall, I tried to tie the vaccinations to our COVID leave policy, and people made a claim that set out a differing standard for certain segments. So in light of that, any of these recommendations from this committee that set a differing standard for certain groups of county employees beyond other groups, I do not support due to fairness and things like that. So one of the prime examples of that would be the in the line of duty type things. My perspective on that is right now, any employee that deals with the public or anyone that deals with the public constitutes in the line of duty and could potentially have an in the line of duty exposure. We're getting hit hard right now with COVID cases in the county. I can't go into a lot of details with that, but we're having employees contract COVID. We're having the children of employees contract COVID. We're having spouses of employees and friends and partners of employees contract COVID, which takes our employees out of the workforce. So having said that, many of these things like masking in the building and having basic sanitation, social distancing, all of those things are recommended on this list, I fully support. We can easily implement those. And our plan is to have those changes implemented by September 13th, which will be next Monday, at the start of business next Monday. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I think it was very well stated. I did send out in the email your answers to the recommendations that were done by the committee. I thank the committee for the diligence that they did, because timing is everything. We, in fact, had to close the building early on Friday, which has caused some consternation that we will not be able to do some items that we would have been able to do. Because of that, we're spending a great deal of money in trying to fumigate after someone has been contracted with the disease. We have to close that section of the building. So it is apropos that we institute this policy on September 13th for a period of 90 days. I explained why it's a 90-day period of time in my email to county council members, and it's time for us to put this in place.
All right, we have a document which has recommendations from the committee, and a document has been edited by the county administrator to indicate areas that he does not concur with. So really we're talking about, we're going to have to simplify this thing if we're going to have a vote on it. And the only way I know to do that is to say there are two general areas that we're going to talk about, I think. One is the requirements that we're going to have for county staff, A, and B, requirements we're going to have for citizens who visit the county office buildings to interact with the staff. Is that accurate?
I would agree with you. There is one other idea that has to be brought forth, and that is any member of a board or commission, or such as we're doing today, having a council meeting, whether it's an agenda meeting or actual council meeting, they too will have to follow the policies.
So let's just be clear, we want to have three policies. Just to be clear, one is for...
No, we don't have three separate policies. We have a policy that affects three particular groups.
Okay. We have a policy that affects the requirements for our county staff.
Correct.
Our elected officials.
Correct.
Visitors to the building. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
That's correct.
It's going to be, and your suggestion is one size fits all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But in other words, that's what we're going to vote on anyway.
Well,
Hey, Larry, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have, is this the appropriate time to ask questions or engage in discussion?
I would think so.
Okay, so in looking at the recommendations to the committee, I don't think that there is much question about buildings and facilities safety protocols. And that would be left to the county administrator to decide on the safety protocols for the buildings and facilities, and then, of course, what we would do about remote work protocols, reduced staff, skeleton crew, and telecommutation if, in fact, that became necessary. The only thing that hasn't been placed there is the possibility of shutting down the buildings, which I don't think anyone wants to do. So those issues, I think, can be resolved relatively simply. The recommendations regarding quarantine protocols and safety protocols, sanitary hygiene practices, social distancing, and cleaning protocols are all pretty easily understood and fairly obvious. The committee recommended vaccination by incentive, and nobody's even talked about it. So I'd like to open that up to discussion.
I didn't understand everything you said because the quality of the sound is not very good, Larry, but I will make a comment. It seems to me that the county administrator has complete authority to make to make rules, if you like, regarding staff and folks coming into and out of the county building. The only thing he can't do, I think, is have a rule that affects us. So
we can impose the rule that affects us. That's not my question. I've agreed with the first two areas, and I'm questioning why we haven't talked about the third, which is vaccination for our employees by incentive.
I can't understand you, Larry. So who understood Larry can repeat that?
Larry said he agrees with the first two. He wants to have a discussion about vaccine incentives.
About vaccine what?
Incentives.
Incentives.
Census?
Incentives, as in like paid time off, paying vacation
right.
if they take the vaccine.
Okay.
Area number 3 on the recommendation sheet.
Yeah, I can't scroll, so I can't see item number 3. So
And
I'm going to just see if I can pull it up.
Let me give you my printed copy. You and I are old school.
All right, Larry, you want to talk about item number 3, which is
Bottom of the first page.
just so council wants
vaccination by incentive? Is that what you want to talk about?
Yes.
Okay.
It seems that we have a number of people, not only in the state and in the county and the general population, but also perhaps on our workforce that are not vaccinated. We have a great many of them who are. So I'm wondering if there is anything we can do to encourage people, now that the FDA has fully approved the Pfizer vaccine, to reconsider their position and perhaps offer some kinds of incentives to have them receive the vaccine, and perhaps even reward those who already have received the vaccine.
Okay, well, again, I think that's in the purview of the county administrator. If he wants to make a recommendation to us, that's...
So I'm making the recommendations from the committee to the county administrator, and I'd be happy to talk about them.
Yeah, so basically it's my understanding from our legal counsel that recently a decision was made that for public workers, at least, any incentive has to be de minimis, so very small. The ruling that came out with regards to that apparently stated that essentially the incentives needed to be limited to something like a bottle of water or something like that. And I don't see those who are against getting a vaccination or have concerns about it making that decision over a bottle of water. But several of the things on this list I do support that would be relatively easy to do. One of them we're already doing. I do not believe, and I'm not requiring anyone to take leave in order to go get a vaccination. We're already doing that kind of by default. We can look into doing the on-site administration of the vaccine for employees. We're trying to ramp that up right now. We have been for several weeks. The difficulty, we are a vaccination provider. Our public safety assistant county administrator for public safety Mr. Phil Foote has been working on that for the last several weeks, trying to get the necessary approvals through DHEC for us to be able to offer vaccinations and hold the vaccinations. But in order to do that, we have to have someone on staff that will oversee the program and the administration of the vaccination. And we are entering into an agreement with someone to provide that medical oversight in order to do that, so we can start doing vaccinations not only on site here at county and around the area at county buildings, but also having mobile vaccination clinics set up that we can do ourselves. A grant leave day after vaccination, I fully support that. The final one, I don't know so much about. That's going to take some additional legal work. I don't think it's available because of the ruling that recently came out. Payment of a stipend upon proof of vaccination. I don't think that's something that we legally can do.
Yeah, that may be the case, Eric. And I understand that the county attorney's office has indicated to us there's a statute prohibiting payment of any bonus to anybody who's an employee of county or state government, or municipal government too, I guess. So if we can't do that, is it possible, since we might be able to grant a leave day after vaccination in the event that someone has, well, that we're going to do that to forestall anyone having to take leave because of any illness they may develop the next day from a reaction to the vaccine? Is it possible for us to consider, instead of giving money to people who have been vaccinated and who we are encouraged to become vaccinated, can we give them leave? Can we increase their leave balance in their bank by 10 or 20 hours? Is that a possibility?
That is a possibility. We would have to clear that with our legal department again to make sure that that falls within that de minimis category for the benefit. I don't think it would be anything that would be out of the pale or appropriate for us to do. It certainly is something that makes a lot of sense, as many of the people that are getting the vaccination, a significant number of them are, having to stay out of work the next day anyway because they don't feel well, or they come to work not feeling well after getting one or both of the vaccinations. So I support that, and we can look into that and have that implemented by next week.
That'd be great. Now, then that finishes up that section of it. Now when we get to a recommendation regarding multifaceted COVID leave policy, what are the plans that we are going to engage in going forward with regard to people who come down with this COVID, either through just their daily lives and the contacts they have with people? And what about the people who are exposed and duty-bound to be exposed? I'm not talking about someone working in our office who's wearing a mask, dealing with a person who's wearing a mask, and they're separated by a counter where they're conducting business in one of our operations. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who are duty-bound, such as the EMTs, the people in the jail, the firemen, and sheriff's deputies who are duty-bound to interact with people who may not be masked, who are not announcing their vaccine status, but who may be engaged in very close contact with people as a result of the type of work that they do. Are we suggesting that if they come down with COVID, they're going to have to take sick leave?
Once it expires, yes. Once the COVID leave expires for everyone.
Why does COVID leave have to expire?
It's scheduled to expire September 30th, so I'm okay. I think it comes down to two issues for me. Is one, if we're going to have COVID leave and honor that, I think the fair thing to do would be for council to advise me to extend COVID leave at least through the end of October for everyone that may contract COVID, or let it expire on September the 30th for everyone. Because again,
I follow you on that. I think October 30th is certainly not enough time. We're in the midst here of something that's probably going to go right to the end of the year. But my question really has to do with the feeling that we have here as to whether we're going to give people time off who become afflicted by this plague through no fault of their own, And then those people who are forced by their conditions of duty, they may actually, let's talk about the jail. They may receive transmission of that virus on more than one occasion. What are our plans in dealing with them through the end of the year while this virus condition is spiking? And what about the EMTs who are forced to be in an ambulance with someone who can have COVID and transmit it to them? And that's the nature of their business. What about those people? Are we going to give them COVID leave once? Or are we going to give it to them as they become ill with this disease? I don't know if we need to prove they received it in the ambulance, or they received it during a scuffle with the sheriff deputy, or whether it was transmitted from someone in the jail. I don't know if we have to prove that. I suppose we can have it certified by a supervisor. But what's our plan about that? I think it's something we need to talk about. How do you treat those people?
Well, yeah, and
Larry, I'm sorry. I want to recognize Logan and then Stu, but I didn't mean to interrupt the county administrator. Go ahead.
I think Councilmember McEllen, if we're going to do that and offer COVID leave to anyone, I think the best course of action to handle this and make it fair, again, going back to the criticism that I received a few weeks ago, I certainly understand the criticism. I don't know that I necessarily agree with it, but I understand the viewpoints that were made. I think if we're going to do it, we need to do it for everyone, because sometimes we do not know how long COVID exists on paper or other items that people might be bringing in for our staff to exist. So they could come in, people could come in and be fully masked, sanitize their hands and everything, but they could have sneezed and coughed and done all their things in their car on the way over here with their papers lying next to them, and COVID get on paperwork that they're turning into the county staff. So I don't know how you make that distinction. So in order to be fair, I'm entirely supportive of extending COVID leave for every county employee that gets COVID. I don't think you have to tie it, or you shouldn't tie it to someone saying that they contracted COVID in the line of duty. I think that's asking for, it's be difficult to enforce in my mind. And I think you're putting the employees in a predicament of trying to say, well, you know, in order for me to get this COVID leave, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I contracted COVID in the line of duty. In order to avoid all of that, I think it'd be just best to extend the COVID policy for everyone, continue with the 80 hours of COVID leave for those employees. And then if it happens, if they need more than 80 hours, then we rely upon the department heads and the assistant county administrators that we have to review those on a case-by-case basis, working with our HR department to see if additional COVID leave is warranted for those individuals. So that would be my answer.
Mr. Administrator, are you asking this body to approve your extending the COVID leave to the end of October?
Yes.
I mean, if we're going through this, we may as well, a piece at a time, stop and ask the question, does anybody object if the administrator extends the leave to the end of October?
Yeah, I object. I think it should be extended to the end of the year.
Okay. That's even better for us.
Okay, so there is an objection. Larry wants to go to the end of the year. Okay, well, let me recognize some of these other folks and we'll come back to it. Logan, I know you had your hand up, and then Stu.
Yeah, so Eric, if I could actually talk to you for a moment. So if we could just go back and forth a couple times about a couple of these things I have, that'd be great. Would you say in Beaufort County, we've done a good job educating our public and our employees about options to protect themselves against COVID, social distancing, masking, vaccination, and giving them opportunities to be put in those situations to get a vaccine, supplied masks, supplied sanitation?
So are you talking about general or
general?
workforce?
Beaufort County, have we done a good job making sure that people have public access to the vaccine, to masks, to sanitation, pretty sure you can go into a Walmart right now and still get the vaccine for free.
Yeah.
There's no scheduling, there's no line, there's no nothing, including our staff, correct? So one of the problems I'm gonna have with anything that's gonna come down is gonna be on that vaccination. It's not about supporting it or not supporting it. It's the fact that people are educated enough at this point to decide the decision they wanna make. If we're gonna start bribing people to go take a vaccine, then we're gonna have to be held liable for whatever comes of that vaccine, whether it's now, 15, 20 years. And that's any vaccine in history. There's always some type of side effect later on in the future. And we know that. And I think the moment we start bribing people to go out and get a vaccine, that puts us in a situation where we can be held liable. That's one of my big fears. My other thing is that people, I believe, on our staff that want to take the vaccine have already done so. They've had access to it. I know some people that were against it at one time that are for it now, and vice versa. I just think we're getting into a real slippery slope the moment we start talking about that, which it sounds like you and I agreed on that based on what you were saying on point number 3. So I just want to see what's the route on that, and maybe our legal team can help us on that. You know, if we start motivating to push that, how are we not held liable?
Well, I mean, again, and I'm going to speak, I'm not going to put legal team, this is Eric Greenway, County Administrator's perspective on it. Organizations all across this country, both public and private, do things to promote vaccinations prior to COVID. I know several of the government organizations that I've worked with in the past, they, would pull in a truck in the parking lot or have people come on site to give the flu vaccine each year on site for employees and things like that. And people were able to go get it. I don't know that there's any liability associated with that. Some people who got the flu shot, they came down with the flu after getting it. So, again, while I think we've done a good job of educating the public in Beaufort County, not necessarily the county itself, but other agencies around about the vaccination, I do think that there is some consideration given in this particular case and the impact that this having. I'll give you an example. Last week we had a department here on Friday that had an employee that tested positive for COVID. Employee went home. Employee was at work that morning. Employee went home. We had to clear that department so that we could bring in the team to sanitize and fog that department. That takes 4 hours. So there was no need for me to send those departments home, those employees home for 4 hours and bring them back for an hour or two on the Friday before Labor Day. So essentially, all the employees in that department got a half day off extra for the Labor Day weekend. And that's a good thing in some regards, but it's also a production thing in regards to county. Fortunately, that was not a necessarily public-facing department, but had it been a public-facing department, we would have had an entire department shut down because of a COVID-related incident that could have taken those employees out of the work day for a half day. So there is some merit to consideration of vaccination. I believe in the vaccine. I'm fully vaccinated. I got it initially whenever we set up the vaccination clinic with Hilton Head Hospital down at Buckwater. I got it back in April. I'm fully vaccinated. Did I have some complications from getting that vaccination? I certainly did, personally. I did have those. Am I glad I had the vaccination? Yes, I am glad I had the vaccination because of what I'm seeing going on right now in our medical centers in this state and around this nation for those that are vaccinated and contract COVID versus those who are not and contract COVID. Those numbers are very much real. I don't think they're being, there is no reason for anyone, anywhere, to manipulate those numbers to make that situation worse than it really is. There would be no benefit to doing that. You could say, well, they're doing it so they can make more money on getting the vaccinations or whatever. You know, I think that's an emotional argument.
I'll save you that part because I'm with you. And I've said it publicly before that, you know, it's not that I believe the vaccine works or doesn't work. You know, I've encouraged my grandparents to get it, my dad to get it because they're high risk. You know, it's not that. So my question to you is this, though. If one person in that department still got COVID, vaccinated or unvaccinated, you still would have had to clean out that entire room and shut it down for the whole day, either way. And it is a fact that people are vaccinated, still can contract and spread COVID.
They can contract, they can spread it, but.
So at that point, correct, in the hospitals.
The numbers are those that are contracting COVID, vaccinated versus unvaccinated, are much higher for the unvaccinated than for the vaccinated.
So my question though is, it still comes down to that personal decision. The only person that it protects is the person that takes the vaccine, not anybody else around them.
And you and I are in agreement on that. It's a personal decision. Are there things that our government can do to help people make that personal decision for themselves? I think, yes, there are, and I think we should do that.
Thank you.
Logan, can I go on to Stu?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay,
That's
Stu,
good.
go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a thought, not to cut anybody off and continue the discussion, but it seems to me that these particular procedures fall in two categories. One is they're under the jurisdiction of Eric, and the other is where there's some input needed from council, either that Eric would like to have it or it's within our obligations to do it. So if that's true, it seems to me, and I trust Eric's judgment on this, it seems to me he's in a position to go ahead and implement, with the recommendation of the committee, the pieces that he feels, make sense to just go ahead and do it, and then come back to us perhaps next Monday with what are the 2 or 3 or 4 items where he would either like to get some input or that we have an obligation to make some input. But by and large, it seems to me the committee did a good job, and we can get on with the bulk of it under Eric's assigned duties. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Larry? Oh, I'm sorry. No, Joe?
Yes, I think we can summarize it this way. We all want to do the best we possibly can for everyone. Everyone has made some very valid points. Whether you get vaccinated or not is your personal decision. The carrot and the stick sometimes does not work. So I would recommend that we do the following. One, that we follow the guidelines that we are being recommended by the committee to the county administrator for the 90-day period of time. So therefore, the COVID leave should coincide with that 90-day period of time as well. Because we've said during this 90-day period of time, he will be able to come back to us at some point in time and say, the things we put into place are working. We can see this, or we need this, or we don't need this. So I think those go together. As far as the vaccination goes, whether we should compensate someone, my personal opinion is that we do have a large group that were vaccinated. As Eric said, like I have been vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine. Now, starting September 20th, there's the recommendation for the 3rd shot. So, and some people do get a reaction. Therefore, it would be prudent to allow the administration to say, if it is legally possible, if you get a reaction from the shot, that you could have the day off without being charged sick time.
Yeah, I think the administrator is looking for some direction from us on certain specific things, and one of them was how long to extend the COVID leave. And I asked if anybody objected to the end of October, and Larry suggested the end of the year. Does anybody have an objection to going? And you're saying what? The end of November, Joe?
No, December 12th coincides with the 90-day period that we're going to have.
Larry, are you okay with that? Because I can ask the question. Does anybody object to extending it to the December 12th? All right, hearing no objections, there you go, Mr. Administrator. Okay. What other areas do you need specific I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I agree with Stu that I don't think that that council needs to actually do anything here, other than if Eric should come back with some specific recommendations in areas that he feels he would like some direction in. But for the most part, these recommendations were made by members of council and the executive staff to be delivered to him for his consideration and implementation if he thought that was the way to go. So what we were trying to do is establish a fair way to do this. And with regard to Mr. Cunningham's caustic comments about bribery, I think what we're trying to do here is ensure that people are given an incentive rather than a bribe. If they don't want to get the vaccine, that's fine. I don't think anybody is trying to make anybody do anything. I simply think that what we're trying to do is ensure the safety and health of our employees and their families and anyone who comes into the building. If they choose not to receive the vaccination, that's their choice. Incentives, I think, are a different form of animal than what most people would consider a negative connotation of a bribe. I object to it and I reject it.
Thank you. Logan, I know you want to comment further.
Yeah, so a couple things. I'm sure most of you know that I was pretty caught off guard by this ad hoc committee being created in the first place because a lot of us weren't made aware of it. I went back and looked at Chairman Passament's statements, and in his statement during the county council meeting and his published statement that we put on our website and Facebook, it says that we're not going to make any decisions or anything until our scheduled meeting, September 27th, in full council. So I don't see how today we make any suggestions, recommendations, or implement anything until full council is here based on the way this ad hoc committee was created and presented to the public. And that's...
Let me respond to that. Because I don't think that the full council has to do anything except receive the report. I don't think we need to take any action. And the reason we couldn't wait till September 27th is we are faced with what I would consider to be a health emergency. And we didn't feel we could wait another month to implement some of these very important procedures.
Yeah, I mean, the county administrator has unilateral authority to make almost every decision that's been discussed by the committee and by us here today, except he can't tell us what to do. That's the only difference. I mean, there's nothing that he can't do unilaterally. I mean, but I think he's asking for our input on certain things, which
what I would like for you all to do as the committee, if it pleases the chairman of council and chairman of the committee, is that on September 13th, I would ask that you all adopt these recommendations from the committee with instructions for me to carry out plans to implement those. We will begin Monday implementing some of those things, such as masks in the building to protect the employees and the public, things like that. But if you all would be so kind as to do that for me on September 13th, I would greatly appreciate it.
I'll be happy to forward it on from the committee to the council, but the thing that we have right now is a list of things recommended by the committee, by the ad hoc committee, and some of those things that you have a problem with. Well, so I would like to send something to council that reconciles those two differences.
We will have our recommendations and the information that you forward to the council as to what we can support at the staff level for council to consider.
On the 13th.
On the 13th.
Yep, okay, I'm fine with that. Any other members of council want to comment?
I'm good with that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
I will do a roll call on that. I'll vote no.
What's that?
I won't support that, so I'll vote no on that.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment before we leave this topic? I think we've given the county administrator what he needs, I think. Okay.
Gerald has a comment.
Oh, Gerald, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. I apologize.
Yeah, if I might, listening to all the comments and lengthy discussion, I think like someone commented earlier that the ad hoc committee did a very good job on bringing these recommendations forward. The county administrator has basically selected the ones that he can support and the ones that he's not supportive of at this point. And so us as a council moving forward and implementing some of this, I think is for the benefit of the population as a whole. But I would caution all of us that as we implement these things, we need to monitor the success of these procedures that we're putting in place. Just to say that Charleston County mandated vaccination for the county employees to promote a safe workplace. And I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's great. And I think unless things change and this virus lessens its potency, then I think we're going to find ourselves in a similar situation. Until everyone in the workforce is vaccinated, I don't think we're going to stop the process of someone coming in and infecting another person or several other persons in an office or the department. And so without going to the extent of mandating vaccination for our employees, I think we're just going to put a Band-Aid on this thing right now.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just to clear one.
Go ahead, sure.
Yeah, there are a lot of companies that are also not mandating a vaccine, including the White House, CDC, WHO, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Moderna, including the companies that have created it, are not mandating it for their employees. Just throwing that out there.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, I'll move on to item number 8. Item number 8 is an ordinance defining our relationship with the Beaufort Memorial Hospital. We talked about that in an earlier council meeting, and it was deferred to the September Executive Committee meeting, which is now. What I can say is that I don't think anybody here would doubt that the folks at Beaufort Memorial Hospital have other things on their plate right now, critical things, and our attorneys still need a little more time to explain some of the details of that ordinance to the attorneys and the board members of Beaufort Memorial Hospital. So without objection, we'll move that forward to the next executive committee meeting. Okay, hearing none, it will be moved forward to the next executive committee meeting. The next item is a discussion regarding elements and rules and procedures handbook. Believe it or not, Sarah and I have been working on this diligently. At a previous executive committee meeting, we approved Chapter 1, which was the role of council members, which included officers, parliamentarian, residency requirements, and clerk to council. And the next item, which will appear in your mailbox probably this weekend, which will be Chapter 2, called Meeting Management, which includes meeting notice, workshop sessions, executive sessions, conduct of meetings, order of business, and decorum and debate. That portion has been written. I can't explain all of the logistical hurdles that our clerk has to deal with, but it has to do with the software platform she's trying to use. And as soon as she gets it on the proper platform, which should be this weekend, she'll send it out to each one of you for your review and comments. So that'll be, you'll have that to look at. So at the next executive committee meeting, we can approve that. And at that time, we'll have another chapter or two, which you can also look at and approve. Any questions about the progress on the handbook? It's moving along. It's just tedious. All right. Next item is Low Country Workforce Board reappointment of Sarah Marshall, Director of Community Services, Beaufort Jasper EOC. I need a recommendation for the reappointment of Sarah Marshall for Director of Community Services, Beaufort Jasper EOC.
So moved.
Thank you. That sounded like Gerald. Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, yes, sir. Who said what?
Oh, that was Jill that made the motion, not me.
I'm sorry?
It was Jill who made the motion and not I.
Oh, okay. Jill made the motion. Thank you. Without objection, we will approve the appointment of Sarah Marshall as Director of the Community Services, Beaufort Jasper EOC. Hearing no objections, she is approved. Next is item 11. We'll need a motion to approve the reappointment of Stephen Murray to Beaufort County Economic Development with an expiration of 2024. Just for clarification, this is an appointment by the City of Beaufort, Beaufort City Council, but it needs final approval by us. So we're just really rubber stamping the approval of the Beaufort City Council on the reappointment of Stephen Murray. Do I have a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Without exception, we will approve the reappointment of Stephen Murray to the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation with an expiration of 2024. Hearing no objection, Mr. Murray is approved for the reappointment. Now I need a motion for the reappointment of Richard Gow to the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation to expire in 2024. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
I have a second. All right, we have a motion and a second for the reappointment of Richard Gow to the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation to expire in 2024. Without objection, the reappointment of Mr. Gow will be approved to expire in 2024. Hearing no objections, the reappointment of Mr. Richard Gow is approved through 2024. Are there any other matters to be brought before this body? Hearing none, all matters having been discussed, we are adjourned. And the next meeting is Community Services. Larry, you were teed up for